Welcome to Blaze Game Day. I'm Jack Connolly, joined by AJ Goncalves and Koby Braunstein. And of the winter, spring sports heating up in Arizona State. We're here to give you the full scoop, starting with men's basketball. Entering the final week of the season, Sun Devils 14-14, unable to capitalize on their upset win over number 13 Texas Tech last week. Fresh off their Texas road trip, they fell yesterday 90-78 against TCU. Koby, what are your thoughts on that game?
It was a game largely controlled by who was at the free throw line. And TCU was the physical team down low, and it got really chippy. You were there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how chippy was it in the second half?
After the game, Bobby Hurley said that was one of the more physical games that he's ever been a part of. And that's a guy who was playing in the prime, grit and grind, 90s era. When you saw it early in the second half, emotions and tensions boiled over. Benches cleared a little bit. Bobby Hurley got knocked to the ground. There was a TCU player ejected. That just gives you a sense of what the environment was like. Rowdy crowd. Both teams needed that. I mean, we were talking about it in the open. Sun Devils, they need every win they can get to stay afloat, to keep their March hopes alive. And TCU, the definition of a bubble team. And you could feel that from when you walked in.
Yeah, there was 40 free throw attempts for TCU. That's insane, including over 20 in the second half. And it was a game, David Punch was neutralized, per se. He only had 8 points. And they had a couple other players that really stepped up in the point department, and it really gave ASU limited opportunities to try to come back. A lot of times it was a double-digit game or a 3-possession lead. It couldn't get down to a certain point where they could execute and also try to get back into the game.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. They couldn't execute this year, and it's been the Bobby Hurley thing. This guy, he's a lame duck coach essentially here. He's probably done at the end of the year. Just calling a spade a spade. When you reinvent a roster and you totally change your players, you change your personnel out, and it's sort of the same result of where are we heading to, it ultimately falls on the head coach. And yeah, they had that huge win against Texas Tech. Were you calling that game?
I was,
Remember
yeah.
that? So at the end of that game, the last 2 minutes, I felt like that team completely fell apart in terms of just undisciplined, not smart basketball. And ever since then, it's been the Bobby Hurley thing around here. They play up to good competition, and then opponents they should take care of, like Baylor, they don't. They don't take care of it. And TCU, that's another team they should hang in there with. They ultimately lose that game. And they've got 3 really interesting, compelling games coming up here down the stretch. I'm very curious to see how this team finishes out. And you're playing really, really good opponents. Kansas is no joke. Darren Peterson's a stud. And Iowa State, man, oh man, they're one of the best teams as well.
And just quickly, too, another thing is they're 2-8 in the road.
Yeah.
They're 2-8 in the road. Their one conference win on the road was Utah, and the other was Hawaii all the way back in November. That was before the Maui Invitational where Mo Odom went off. That's a long time ago, and that's not the record you want in those games on the road where you're trying to put yourself in a position to maybe have some sort of a resume for the NCAA tournament. At this point, it's too far gone.
Yeah, Sun Devils sitting at 14-14. They had an opportunity to kind of put everybody on notice after the win over Texas Tech. They were the talk of the country. They're one of those teams with despite everything that this team has gone through, they still had a chance to sneak into March now with the back-breaking losses. Had a lead at the half in Baylor. They had a chance down 5 early in that second half before TCU really took over that game last night. At 500, you just see the dominoes aren't looking like they're going to fall. They were stacked up coming into this final stretch. You got Utah coming in home, Kansas, and then they'll finish up with Texas. Who they got to get finishing up with?
Iowa State.
Iowa
as
State.
tough of a matchup as you're going to get. Yeah.
In Ames. So we're looking at that. What is the outlook going forward?
I'll let you take this one first.
Just brace yourself because you're going to see really good basketball from one team. And the other team, look, I think basketball at the end of the day just comes down to your stars, right? It's a tale as old as time and really disciplined coaching as well. But when I look at a team like Kansas, Darren Peterson, he just jumps off the screen at you, right? And for ASU, I would really try to make it about your stars. Mo Odom is leading this team in points, averaging 17+ a game. This guy really should carry this team from the rest of the way out. And I'm looking right away at Saturday. Utah, at home, that is a very beatable opponent, and that's an opponent that I think ASU can hang with. I think that's very important for Bobby Hurley. And then those last 2 games, I'm honestly struggling. I want to come up here and tell you that they're going to have a chance, but those teams are just so good. And Darren Peterson is probably going to be the #1 pick in the draft, potentially. I think A.J. DeBanta could definitely have an argument, but there's just so much talent on those other 2 teams that they just really backed themselves into a corner this year. They had opponents earlier in the year they should have, cakewalked on, and they didn't. didn't. They didn't take advantage of their opportunities. And I think that's the summary of Bobby Hurley's time here in Tempe. They didn't take advantage of their opportunities.
AJ, looking at that with Darren Peterson, who could the Sun Devils throw on him to try and slow him down in that final home game? Because I don't think with Mo, the size difference, I don't think that's the best matchup.
I don't know really how you would defend a player like Darren Peterson at this point. All I would say is, get everybody from Tempe down there, call up the shuttles, get the buses. I think that's the only way you'd stop Darren Peterson at this point.
And the thing about that is, I go back to a press conference that Bobby had after they lost the Maui championship, and he's like, I'm not going to send a smoke signal. It's so different from the way that Molly Miller is conducting herself and that Kenny Dillingham are conducting themselves. Bobby does his own thing in his own way, and I respect it. But in terms of sending out the smoke signals or activating the Valley, he doesn't really – I'm going to use the word aura, I'm sorry, but he doesn't necessarily have that aura to draw in these large crowds. And when they're not winning, it certainly doesn't help either.
You're right, too. And just really quick, we're going to talk about women's basketball later. Look at the changes they made for making a coaching change
100%.
Just a year ago.
Yeah.
Their record is completely different, and it feels like there's hope once again. Imagine what it would be like to have March Madness in Tempe with an ASU basketball team, because, frankly, with Bobby Hurley and the attitude and just everything else that's going along with it these past 2 years, it's rough. It's a really rough time to be a Sun Devil basketball fan on the men's side, in my opinion. And on the women's side, you have a team that's just coming up, so much promise, so much potential, and thinking about the future. Everyone, when you're good in sports, you think about the future. You can think about that, right? But for this men's team, I don't know what the future is, because it's so bleak, and especially because Bobby Hurley is off a contract next year. So they're going to have to figure things out, and it's just one of those times where you just got to look yourself in the mirror, and I think the AD around here, Graham Rossini, is going to have to make some changes and really some difficult decisions coming up down the road.
Feels like an eternity away back in 2018, pre-COVID, where DFA was a feared place to play. The Sun Devil men's team were taking down #1 teams. Coming up, we'll talk about the women's basketball team, an opportunity to make some March Madness magic, coming up on Blaze Game Day. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day. Arizona State women's basketball fell 66-61 to BYU in their final home game of the regular season. And guys, that road to the big dance just got a lot tougher. Koby, let's break down the field and what this loss means for the Sun Devils.
Stings. It stings. That's the first word that comes to mind. You really wanted to just cement yourself amongst those last 4 teams in to try to solidify a spot. And it would certainly be unprecedented in Molly Miller's first season to go from what the team was before with Natasha Adair to what they are now. But taking a look at their resume, they don't necessarily have a signature win. They've gotten some help because of win over Gonzaga. Gonzaga now is leading in the WCC conference, so it looks better on paper. Those are certain things that, as they materialize over time, it helps your case, but you want to take care of business on the basketball court first, and they were not able to do that tonight.
I mean, it was a wretched shooting performance. But before I get into that, let's just be real. Molly Miller, first season, the turnaround from Natasha Adair and the playing for the full 60 minutes quote, that's done. Look, Molly Miller, this is a new era of ASU women's basketball. Let's just start there, right? But tonight, I mean, I was going to come in here and talk about McKenna Brackens and Gabby Elliott. Those are the 2 big players on this team. They were both wretched from the field. I believe Brackens was 4 for 16, and 16 points. Yeah, it's probably one of the most inefficient 16-point games that I can remember, really. But overall, I mean, look, this season's been great and all, but I'm just going to be real, call a spade a spade. This team will not be playing in March. I think that's where we're at. I mean, Molly Miller tried to, do a little campaign around here, right? You saw her on SportsCenter. She was really trying to put ASU out there, and I think that's a great thing for this program. Obviously, if you're talking about ASU women's basketball at this point, it's probably in a positive note, and it's probably a really good look at the future, and you have a great one with Molly Miller now at the helm. But I feel like they left one tonight on the table. I mean, BYU, they stunk up the joint as well in terms of shooting, and they got lucky enough to win this game. They played better in the late stretches. And ASU, for them to have that lead that they did in this game and to blow it, that's one that you're just going to be sitting there kicking yourself for probably the rest of the season, considering the stakes of what was to come after tonight if they were to win this game.
And they were leading 32-18 at halftime, and they only scored 6 points in the third quarter. That's not going to get it done.
Yeah, Gabby Elliott and McKenna Brackens combined 8 for 27 from the field. Yeah, Koby, you said it. That will not get it done. But I love the point that you made. Plus 12 win differential in year 1 of the Molly Miller era. And that can go up. That can change. Brighter days are ahead. But looking ahead to Texas Tech and beyond, looking at the big picture, you guys were here last year. How different do things feel now in Tempe compared to a year ago when they were without a head coach?
Extremely, extremely different. Like now, they actually have a head coach that is putting butts in seats. I know you love that line. I know Kenny Dillingham loves that line. Molly Miller certainly loves that line, and so does Graham Rossini. They've done that in year one under Molly Miller. I think one thing that's really helped too, that has brought, we've used the word aura a lot, I'm going to use it again, that has brought more aura to this team is the fact that they beat the team down south twice. Absolutely massive, not just in terms of what their resume looks like, but also in terms of putting butts in seats. Fans want to see you beating your rival, and that's a great look in year one.
Yeah, I think it's all about the one word, really. And for me, I've talked to Sun Devil fans for the last 2 years that I've been here. I'm from Massachusetts, so I really didn't know many Sun Devil fans before the last 2 years. But the one word they'll always tell you is pride. Because I think the pride is back again. They care. People care about women's basketball. Did you really care a year ago? I mean, obviously we did. We're sports journalists. We're assigned to cover the teams. But did the fans out there really, truly, care from minute one to the last minute of that season? No, you probably lost interest because the team on the floor was not giving you the dividend that you wanted to see for your admission of watching the team or even going down to DFA to watch a game. But now it's back. It's fun. I think what you have here is a team that's just starting something special, and they're going to keep going, and Molly Miller's going to keep recruiting, and they're going to keep building, and I think that's what you want. It reminds me a lot of the Patriots, They took care of an easy schedule, first-year coach, right? And now you just want to look to sustain that success. I think that's the big thing from here on in for Molly Miller.
So
how do you
comparing
sustain the success?
ASU women's basketball to...
Well, no Super Bowl run. Like, look, they're not going to March Madness.
We're comparing Ronald Acuna to New Contrada to Ronald Acuna.
I'm like Colin Cowherd. I have a wide range of references, but once you get it all together, you make a really good, nice dinner meal. That's what you make.
After the Sun Devils started 15-0, 7 of 8, tough sledding in Big 12 play. This season's not over. They'll finish the regular season on the road in Lubbock against a really good Texas Tech team, ranked 20th. Koby, how do you see the Sun Devils sizing up against the Red Raiders?
Well, the Red Raiders were a ranked team coming into the week. They'll be ranked in the matchup this weekend, but they've lost 2 out of their last 3 games. And the loss that they had on Wednesday night to Kansas certainly doesn't look great in terms of their resume overall. Are they going to be a tournament team? Absolutely. Is ASU going to be a tournament team? That is not guaranteed at all. So going to Lubbock will be a matchup where ASU not only really needs, but it'll look excellent for their resume. Can they go out in a tough environment and get that win? We just have to wait and see. But they don't necessarily have that signature win on their resume. I think that's the one thing that the committee will look at and they'll point to and say, we can't really see them standing out amongst the rest of the pack.
Yeah, again, they don't really have that signature win, very similar to that other team I was talking about. But nonetheless, listen, let's talk about this team, right? If they go in and somehow win this game, it'd be insane. And really, you'd have like one hell of a convincing case for the Sun Devils to at least be in the conversation to play in March. I think that's a big thing. But my thing is, does the shooting get better? Because tonight, down the stretch, this team folded and packed it up and packed it in. Can they go out there, coming up here, can they go out and finish strong in that third and fourth quarter? I think that's a big thing going forward with this team. It's not about how you start, it matters, but it's really about how you finish in these big games late in the season when you're dying, when you're trying to just find that way to get that win and try to just improve that record and really give voters things to think about as we head toward March.
ASU came into tonight the final team, or the first team outside of the NCAA tournament. Tough loss to BYU. The season ended today. BYU boosted their case. AJ talked about it. Molly Miller doing a national media tour, made an appearance on SportsCenter last week, popped onto the popular local radio show, Bickley and Murata. Koby, when you look at this team, how important it is to have a brand, what do you think the advantage is for the Sun Devils to have a figure like Molly Miller as the face of the program?
More eyeballs, more butts and seats. As simple as that. Molly Miller is one of the faces of college basketball, one of the young faces of college basketball. You look at winning percentages, she's amongst Kim Mulkey and Gino Auriemma in terms of the amount of wins that she's been able to garner at such a young age. So she certainly is the face. She's been turning the program around, and it's been a very successful year one, regardless of what the Texas Tech result is going to be or where they stand in the Big 12 tournament if they're knocked out in the first round. It's been a big leap in terms of Molly Miller, or where the program was before Molly Miller and where the program is now and where they can continue to go in the future.
Well, the great thing about this, too, is just think about the recruiting pitch that Molly Miller now gives. This was year one of a rebuild, right? you could literally take them to DFA, point up to the rafters and say, that's where your number is going to be one day if you come over to Tempe. Because I think Molly Miller's on the precipice of something incredible here in Tempe, and it was the right move. It ultimately was the right move to bring in Molly Miller, get a fresh start. I think that's a big thing. When it's not working, a fresh start is sometimes really what you need, and Molly Miller has just thrown gas on the fire that is ASU women's basketball because it's back and roaring.
And now is men's basketball. That's the question. Is men's basketball next? We'll see.
Well, they should have done it a year ago, and then they missed the opportunity. But
we'll be tackling that in the upcoming episodes of Blaze Game Day. We'll take a break here on Blaze Game Day. Women's basketball has March Madness in their sights. They have some work to do. Finish up the regular season next week against Texas Tech, then the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day. Jack Connolly, Koby Braunstein, AJ Goncalves. We're taking it to the ice to talk Arizona State hockey, heading into the final series of the regular season, taking on 8th-ranked Denver. Taking a look at the NCHC picture. Arizona State in the 8th spot right now, currently 1 point above Omaha. Omaha taking on unranked Miami of Ohio. Sun Devils, they want to win. Got to take care of business. Koby, starting with you. How do you feel about the Sun Devils' chances to crack the conference tournament?
Well, I think even before we get to the conference tournament, we have to take this larger scope view. At least I will. I know AJ, you will next. Yeah. I'll let you. I'll let you. Will. I'll let you. You know, get what you need to get in terms of a rant in terms of where ASU started beginning of the season and where they are at now and their outlook towards the future. But it hasn't been the season that they wanted, and we talked a little bit off air before that Greg Powers is kind of in a similar position to Bobby Hurley in a way, where it's a game-by-game basis, of course, and you want to attack each and every day thinking you're going to win the next game you're playing. But it's tough when you're looking at that bigger scope and you're not necessarily in the position that you want, and you're fighting for your life. You're fighting for your life. You're well below 500 in terms of your record. You have 2 games to save a season to make a conference tournament. It's not where you want to be, but you have to be content with where things are and move forward.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I really, in our last segment, really didn't make a lot of excuses for ASU men's basketball, but I really do think you can make them for men's hockey. I mean, you lose a player like Cullen Potter right off the bat. That's a first-round pick in the NHL draft. That's a really premium player and a guy you had big expectations for this season. He goes down for the year, and there's a cast of other injuries as well. So I think they have a little bit more of an excuse factory to make if you want to, but at the end of the day, I still see talent on this team. I still see Bennett Shimmick, Cruz Lucius. That's NHL talent right there, premium players that still are on this team and trying to produce as much as they can. It just hasn't added up this year, and it just shows you how good the NCHC is. This series against Denver, I mean, I'd be very concerned if I were a Sun Devil fan. David Carl, the coach of Denver, he might be my favorite coach in the entirety of the country right now for what he's doing for that program. Made them an established name in college hockey, and that's very impressive to do outside of Hockey East, obviously. But I'm looking at the bigger picture with Greg Powers. Again, we had a booster, obviously, who just came in and said Greg Powers is going to get extended and he's going to be a Sun Devil. So, I mean, again, that's another team you can't really make a coaching change for. I'm a fan of reality, Jack and Koby. You know, I mean, you could make the crazy assumption, you know, would you want Greg Powers out? I think for this team to go where they want to go for a national championship, I think we have to seriously take a closer look at Greg Powers and what he can do going forward. Has he built this thing up from a club hockey program to a premium team now? Of course. And he's gotten talent to Tempe. Absolutely. He's a good recruiter. But can he take them to that next step of being a national championship contender? I think that's the true question I'd be asking long term.
When you take a look at that, AJ, how confident are you in Powers' ability to take this program? You said he's built it up from a club program to a nationally relevant top 15 coming into this season. It's no secret this year hasn't gone the way Sun Devil Nation hoped it would. But looking ahead, how confident are you in his ability to take this program to that threshold?
I'm confident. I would say that. I think Greg Powers is a really good hockey coach. I think for what he's done with this program here in Tempe is nothing short of impressive, and he deserves every one of the flowers he gets from the Tempe faithful. Again, normally how this would go, I'm a New England guy, okay? I don't like hockey, I love hockey, all right? Normally how this would go, if you were in New England, you were Hockey East, you're a big school, we would start looking at the coach at this point and saying, what happened with the collection of talent that we had here? I think Greg Powers this year, everything just fell apart. I mean, truly everything. You know, he couldn't catch a break for a long time. You had really good NCHC teams coming in here. Denver, the team they're playing over the weekend, came in here and absolutely destroyed them on a Friday night back in November. I mean, you could go down the list. They started out their season with Gavin McKenna, the #1 pick in the NHL draft coming up in Penn State. So I do appreciate that aspect of the game, but again, Greg Powers, really good coach. Can he sustain success, and can he really start to crack back at this program? Because there's a lot of talent that's going to be walking out of the door, and there were a lot of new faces on this team. What does he do next year when a lot of new faces, again, emerge on this team? How does Powers handle that? How does the team respond to that? And the big thing about coaching, too, in hockey is you have to have your locker room. I don't know if Greg Powers truly has the locker room this year, given where things are at. That's my big concern, but overall, I think you should be optimistic about Greg Powers going forward.
I was thinking the same thing about the locker room comment. I was going to get to it, but you beat me to it on it, and it was a great point. And that, again, a similar sentiment to Bobby Hurley, where he feels like he's giving the messages to his team to try to get him over the top. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And obviously there's top-level competition coming in, and you're traveling to the defending national champion in Western Michigan and getting blown out. Probably that was expected on paper, but those are the really tough matchups where you're thinking maybe you could squeak out one to give yourself some momentum. And those are the type of games where you feel like, okay, if you lose, we didn't have that much to lose. But then there's other games where they're thinking, okay, we don't want to lose this one, but they're coming into the game with a nervous mindset. And I think some of the messages and the fact that they weren't getting across led them to losing their confidence a little bit during the middle of the season. And now it could be a little bit too late. We'll see, Jack.
We're looking at towards the future. Koby, when Coach Powers suits up 13 underclassmen and then gives off dejected vibes in the press conferences, he can't get through to this team. What do you think that says about the psyche of the locker room, but then also looking forward ahead to next year?
It's tough because I honestly think obviously everyone is trying as much as they can and putting wins together again in the NCHC. We don't want to make a joke or farce about that conference because it's one of the best in terms of elite competition in the country. And there's a lot of other teams like Miami, Ohio that were one of the worst teams. I think were they the worst in the NCHC last year?
Probably.
I mean, they were not the cream of the crop. And this year,
wretched watch. I'll tell you that.
Right. And this year they're up there in terms of where they've built up their program. And certainly Arizona State is towards the back end of the NCHC right now, but they're bringing in a couple new players for next year. They also have a lot of production this year, like a Cruz Lucius and like a Bennett Shimmick. They're not going to be here next year, so it'll be interesting to see where they stand. But right now, you got to take care of business if you can and make your way to the NCHC tournament. I'm a big basketball fan. We're both from New England, but I'm more of a basketball guy than a hockey guy. And you got to make some magic in March, right? You got to make some magic.
I just worry too. Again, obviously, you're looking at right here, right now. Denver, they're not going to be resting starters. They're 8th right now in the entire country.
No load management.
And David Carl is the guy who puts players out there and wants them to succeed. And I think they're going to play the full weekend and really go in to March at 100% and really feeding off each other in terms of chemistry. So I would expect to see starters out there for the entirety of both games if it were up to me, and I think David Carl as well.
Coming up next, we'll take it to the baseball diamond. Willie Bloomquist, in his 5th season, has Sun Devil fans excited. 8-1 start. We'll talk about the series in Oklahoma and looking ahead to their clash at Globe Life Park this weekend. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day, talking Arizona State baseball. 8-1 on the season, sweeps over Omaha and St. John's. They split at number 13 Oklahoma in the midst of their SEC road trip, starting with Koby. What have been the keys to the hot start?
The keys have been pitching. The pitching has been excellent, and their middle of the order / top of the lineup has been raking so far. Landon Harrison has been outstanding. He had 2 home runs in Tuesday's game where they blew the doors off of a really, really good Oklahoma team, and they were scoring over 13 runs per game, which was the 5th most in the country coming into that first matchup, and they were only able to muster off just a couple runs. And then ASU had 14 runs in the first 3 innings of action, and they had 8 runs in the second inning, 6 in the third inning, and from that point on, it was off and running for the Sun Devils. It's been a very impressive start, and the Wednesday game, it certainly looked like they were going to be able to move to 9-0, and then a blown save. AJ can get into that a little bit more. Derek Schaefer wasn't able to punch the door and close that door in terms of what would have been an even more remarkable start heading into a very important weekend against a couple or a trio of teams in the top 25.
Yeah, and Schaefer's really pitched well for them relatively all year to this point. Obviously, here in that game today against Oklahoma, 3 extra base hits. It can't happen, but at the same time, 8-1. 8-1,
yeah.
Went into Oklahoma and beat Oklahoma. Are you kidding me? I didn't have that on my bingo card, and that's for sure. But the guy who's really stood out to me, I love The Wolf of Wall Street. It's probably my favorite movie. The Wolf of Tempe, New Contradas. This guy is an electric factory. This guy makes things happen. He puts butts in seats, and you know what he's got? The one thing that I love in all of sports, speed. He has speed. He can run. He can hit. He can pretty much do it all for this team in Tempe. True 5-tool stud out there for the Sun Devils. And really, the one thing that can stop him, he reminds me a lot of Ronald Acuna Jr. And I'm not saying like MLB potential or anything like that. All I'm saying is the only thing that can truly stop him is an injury. He obviously had the hand injury and the back injury, and that really put a damper into him last year, obviously. And coming back this year, he just looks refreshed. I was there opening night, and I was really concerned. Would they kind of leash him a bit, not let him run, kind of just let him slowly get back into that baseball, game shape? And they were letting him run right away. Immediately when he got on first base, the first pitch he saw, he was running. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And I think overall, I'm really excited about this pitching staff too. I mean, if you watch this team at all last year, the one thing that really got him was the bullpen. Bullpen leaked a lot of games. And the transfers they went out and got, and Willie Bloomquist, they went to work. Alex Overbay from UNLV, I'm a very big fan of his. Again, another guy who came in opening night, threw 60 pitches on opening night in a relief debut. And he's been money for them really almost all year now. And I think that's the big thing. The impact of the transfers and the guys who stayed around, and Landon Hairston and New Contradas really stepping up. This team's fun to watch, and it's excitement. Baseball, it's back in Tempe.
And we can't go without mentioning Cole Carlone, too. Yeah. I mean, he was starting in the bullpen last year, and he's looking like a guy that can go 5, 6, 7 innings. Yes, that's a 6-7 reference, but he's a guy that can extend these outings, and he's certainly going to be moving up draft boards. And it's been very impressive to see him work in his first 2 starts.
And he's a guy who's as highly touted out of the bullpen. You knew he can go 2 innings of wipeout stuff. What do you think this change is going to be to a starter? Because we've seen him when he faces lineups for the second time against St. John's and even Omaha. Teams start to figure him out a little bit. We saw him get pieced up more. That stats look good, but even in that outing against St. John's, the Johnnies had the opportunities. They had runners on second and third. Credit to Carlone for able to get himself out of trouble. But what do you want to see in that next stage of development being a starter for Carlone?
Well, I think he's done a good job of extending his outings and doing that, going to his stuff that works best. A lot of that is leading off with a fastball that can reach up to 98 miles per hour. That's the velo in terms of what he's been riding on his fastball has gotten is increased in surplus recently. And then a lot of times he's going to his breaking stuff to break down these hitters. He's done an excellent job of that, and he hasn't gotten a ton of strikeouts per se, but his ground ball rate has been through the roof. And again, he's able to get quick outs, and he's done that through his first 2 starts. It'll be interesting to see once the bright lights are on in a Friday start against Big 12 competition, what he's going to be up against. But I think it's been a very, very productive 2 starts for him so far.
I would classify him as the ace of this staff when we look at it, right? Obviously, your opening night pitcher, you want him on the bump. My question is, obviously now you're playing the guys like Oklahoma, you're playing those big-time, baseball teams now in college baseball, and how does he, go with that challenge, going on the road, and really, does he pitch the same? Because, what my manager used to tell me when I was 8 years old, when our ace is on the mound, we win the ball game, and I think that's a big thing. When their best pitchers are on the mound, I think this team's really going to have to start taking care of business, but 8-1, my goodness gracious, this team's in fuego.
Taking on 3 ranked SEC teams, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. The last time the Sun Devils were at Globe Life Park in 2024 was not kind to them. 0-3, they look to change their spirits this weekend. Again, the test, the first chance to see how these Sun Devils do against elite competition. Coming up next, final segment, we'll take a look at the Sun Devils on the softball diamond, off to a hot start into the ranked polls. Welcome back to the final segment of Blaze Game Day. We're talking softball team into the rankings. 23rd, dipped after being 21st in the polls last week. 3-2 weekend, highs and lows. You had run rule wins over Michigan and New Mexico State. And then they also drop games to the Wolverines and New Mexico State on Sunday. Koby, what are your takeaways from this weekend?
Kenzie Brown, absolutely outstanding once again. And that offense was firing on all cylinders, not just in their loss to Michigan, which was one of the most epic games of the college softball season so far, probably one that ASU should have won and one they would want back, but they capitalized in the biggest of ways the next day. Kenzie Brown, 5 shutout innings, able to run rule them. Tanya Windle with 2 home runs. Like I said, the offense firing on all cylinders, and for the most part, it was a productive weekend, and they came back down to earth just a little bit, but so much potential. Potential is the word I'm looking for, and it all starts with girls like Tanya Windle on offense and Kenzie Brown, who we don't have to say that much about her. We already know her credentials.
Yeah, Chester as well is a phenomenal player in her own right as well. But Tanya Windle, I mean, you said it, she hits for pop, and I think that's exciting, right? When you have a team that can hit home runs, I think that's such a huge thing to have, especially on the diamond. It's just such a positive time. And Megan Bartlett, shout out to her because she's done a great job with this program since she's come in. It's been gradually building year after year. She came in the summer of 2022, I believe. So this thing's really been building off. And again, the question now is, can she take them ultimately to that next step? And I think she can. I think she's proven at this point everywhere it's just gradual step by step by step. And I think it's an exciting time for ASU softball and where they're going.
The Sun Devils 13-3 on the season. Koby, what has been the key to this surprise success?
Again, I think relying on a lot of their star players. So Kenzie Brown, she's in the All-American conversation. She was already the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year. The fact that she's gotten off to the start that she's gotten off to is absolutely crucial. And then with girls like Tanya Windle now in her, I forget if it's her 2nd or 3rd season in ASU. I know she's a transfer, but the players that they brought in as well and rallying around a girl like Tanya Windle or someone like Ho Ching has been the keys to their amazing start so far. And it'll be interesting once Big 12 play starts and the competition starts to get a little bit stiffer, but they have the product out on the field right now, and it's working. It's working, and they've been winning.
Yeah, shout out to our old professor, Tom Blodgett, too. He's become the role of the ASU cheerleader. I know a few producers back there will be happy I said that one. But, no, seriously, this team's firing on all cylinders. And there's never been a better time, in my opinion, to go to Farrington and watch a ball game. I mean, this team is just really good. They hit the baseball. But my key is Big 12 play. It's coming up. It's right around the corner. That's going to start to kick in here with this team. Can the pitching sustain outside of Kenzie Brown? We know what Kenzie Brown is. She's a proven commodity in her own right. Who else in that rotation is going to step up long-term for this team? Because that's really gotten them in the past is, you know, that they really have the arms and the pitching staff to really compete. That's a question mark, but who's going to step up this year? I think that's the huge question for them over at Farrington.
One thing you talked about, too, is how fun was the atmosphere at Farrington?
Oh, yeah.
Like, during this time of year, there's record snowfall and blizzards on the East Coast or in the Midwest, and all these teams are coming to Tempe, Arizona. What place would you rather be than there in this kind of weather and 85-degree weather when it's in the negatives and 16, 17 inches of snowfall? It's was insane what was going on the East Coast, and it was so fun to see the atmosphere at Farrington. And the first game that ASU led off with against Michigan was just an absolute classic. It didn't go their way. They almost had a 7th-inning comeback, but a very impressive game in their own right, and Michigan certainly showed up as well. That last loss certainly stings a little bit to New Mexico State, but they already beat that team. They split games, and now it's just on to the next.
Yeah, this weekend ends 22 consecutive non-conference home games. AG talked about it, Big 12 play coming up, they'll open in 2 weeks against Utah. They'll go on the road for the first time against UTEP, and then they have a tough back-to-back stretch. They'll be taking on Oklahoma State and Arizona, 2 ranked teams. How do you think this team sizes up against the big dogs of the Big 12?
Well, I think it ultimately comes down to their hitters. Obviously, who's going to hit when those teams come in? Because let me tell you, Arizona, just specifically, they're not a good team. They're a great team, right? They can pitch, they can hit, they can do just about everything you want them to do on a diamond. So my big question for this team is, can these players right now, especially Tanya Windle, Katie Chester, can they sustain that success too? I think that's a huge question. Yeah, can you beat New Mexico and Michigan here in Tempe when you've got everything going for you early in the season? Of course, right? What do you do in the dog days, right? What do you do in the dog days of Big 12 play? Do you win those series? Do you win those little at-bats? Do you win those every single count? I think those little things matter, and I think Megan Bartlett will push them ultimately to get them where they want to go. It feels right now in Tempe, it's just so many different tales of great coaches doing so many great things, and then just, suspect coaching and the team just falling apart. So I think as long as Megan Bartlett is on it, and I think these players are really responding well to her, this team's vibing, and, we look for aura in sports. ASU softball, a little bit of aura. Not just a little bit, but a lot of
Yeah,
aura.
they have some juice. They're motivated. They're hungry. Off to a great start.
Koby, talk about that home field advantage. It's a great time to be at Farrington. But ASU's in a unique position where they start the first month of the season at home. They got teams from around the country wanting to get down here, wanting to get out of the cold, out of the snow. What has that home field advantage been like, and how can the Sun Devils make the most of it, of a place the teams really want to be?
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, the wins are translating over. It's super exciting how not just the baseball season starting, but the softball season starting, and baseball is bringing in teams like St. John's from New York and UConn, Connecticut. And so it's so interesting how they're able to bring over all those teams. It doesn't matter what conferences they're in, but everyone wants to be at Farrington and everyone wants to be at Phoenix Muni to watch these teams play in the non-conference, because then it just builds up the momentum and excitement heading into Big 12 play. It used to be Pac-12 play and what was all the excitement surrounding that. And now I think the rivalries also, the new rivalries within the Big 12 is certainly something to make note of as well. And like a Texas Tech, they're one of the best teams in the country. They have a pitcher, Nigeria Ketelhut, that's making over $2 million in NIL. It's absolutely, I mean, astronomical in terms of that number and her brand that she's created for herself. And it's translated on the diamond. They were the national championship runner-ups. So new rivalries, and a girl like Kenzie Brown and just relying on your stars has certainly led ASU to their success.
New era in college sports, college softball, but a great time of year to be a fan of the Sun Devils. So much fun going on. Spring sports getting rolling with baseball and softball, hockey, basketball, the winter sports coming down to the wire. March is here. Great time to be a sports fan. For AJ Goncalves, Koby Braunstein, I'm Jack Connolly, Jack Brooks, Nathan Ketelhut. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure to stick around and catch up with Blaze Game Day all season long.